And the mayor is present. We have our ceremonial matters, which will be our legislative prayer. The next prayer will be brought to us by Reverend Roderick King. He is the pastor of the Church of God in Christ in 1 Church Street. So if you all stand. Pastor.
Thank you so much, man. If you will please bow your heads, the gracious name of the Father God, we're so thankful and grateful for this opportunity to come before your throne of grace. God, thank you for each and every person that is represented and the captain in which they represent, of the jurisdiction and area in which they represent. And God, we just ask that you continue to impart your knowledge, your wisdom, and your understanding within them. God, we thank you for their leadership. God, we thank you for the ability that you have given them. God, in order to lead your people, God, through these tedious times, God, we just ask that you just continue to bless your people. God, we thank you for the mayor on tonight. We just ask that you continue to grant him the wisdom and the knowledge in order to lead. For God, we trust not in our own understanding, but God, in all our ways we acknowledge you. God, thank you for each and every zone that is represented in those, God, who have just been voted in. God, we ask that you just look upon them, God, let your glory and your light shine on them. God, that they may be the leader that you have called them to be. God, we're so gracious and we're so thankful, God, that you have planted them within our community. And God, we thank you for the growth that is going to take place. We thank you for the success that is going to take place. We thank you for the blessings and the favor that is going to flow within our community. It's in Jesus' Master's Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first item on the agenda today is a proclamation that we are going to be giving to Mr. Billy McClure. Is he here? Oh, there he is. He's the guy that's more to blame, more thank, and your lights got turned back on. And doing this particular weather event, guys like him, people like him, stepped up above and beyond duty. And as a city, we're grateful for you. And for this, I'd like to read this proclamation. Whereas Hurricane Milton brought an unprecedented challenge to our beloved city. You can stand up and come on. Come on up, look at the folks. The Hurricane Milton brought an unprecedented challenge to our beloved city of Lake Helen, disrupting the lives of our citizens and damaging vital infrastructure. And whereas the restoration of power is crucial for the health, safety, and well-being of our community, and whereas Billy McClure demonstrated exceptional leadership, dedication, and tireless efforts in coordinating and executing the restoration of power throughout the city. Whereas thanks to Billy's unwavering commitment and swift actions, power was restored to all residents within just 8 days of the hurricane's landfall, bringing light and hope back to our community. Whereas Billy's efforts exemplifies the spirit of resilience and collaboration that defines the city of Lake Helen, I now, therefore, Vernon Burton, Mayor of the City of Lake Helen, do hereby proclaim this day, November 14, 2024, as Billy McClure Day in the City of Lake Helen, honoring him for his remarkable contributions during our time of need. Let us all come together to express our gratitude to Billy McClure for his exemplary service, dedication, and welfare to our city. Somebody get a picture? You got it? Okay. Is it right here? Thank you, brother. Okay, now, everybody stand. We want to get a picture. Y'all all? All right. So there she is.
So it's a group effort, right? You know, Ricky's calling me about the well, Alan's calling me about the trees. It's fortunate that they put me here since '04, and you know, I love coming back and helping Lake County. I really do. This is awesome. You know, it's not needed, but I really appreciate it. So,
he says he's put here, but he begs to come here, and I'm so glad that he lives with me because I cannot live in Lake Helen, and I wouldn't have power if I didn't live with him. His goal is to go to Lake Helen, so.
Yeah, we come to
Next week.
Billy, I did send a memo to your supervisor. Hopefully they pass that on to you and they put that in your file.
They did. Thank you.
Now we come to a very crucial part of our meeting, which is the oath of office, which will be administered by clerk. Clerk's not here.
I've got
Charlene has someone in mind to do it.
Okay. Would one at the other time come up and are we okay?
You want me to go first? He should go first, shouldn't he?
Yeah.
So,
Okay. Yes. Stand. Raise your hand.
huh?
Yeah.
I thought he was going first.
Run. Okay. Run.
It's so old it ain't gonna burst in flames.
I, Roger Eckert,
I, Roger Eckert,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States and the state of Florida against all enemies, domestic, foreign.
You're going too fast.
I will
Last time I had to do that was in the military.
You have to remember that, right? I will support, protect, and defend
I will support, protect, and defend
the Constitution and the government of the United States
the Constitution and the government of the United States
and the state of Florida
and the state of Florida
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
against all enemies, domestic or foreign,
and I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
and I will bear true faith, loyalty, and allegiance to the same,
and I am entitled to hold office under the Constitution,
and I am entitled to hold office under the Constitution,
and I will faithfully perform all duties of the office of City Commissioner of the City of Lake Helen.
like that works.
I will faithfully perform all duties of the office of City Commissioner
I will faithfully perform all duties of the office of Commissioner
of the City of Lake Helen,
of the City of Lake Helen,
of which I am about to enter, so help me God.
of which I'm about to enter, so help me God.
Congratulations.
No, the city
I'll borrow my
light.
uncle's.
It won't burst into flames, I promise. No, I got you.
You got people? You got people?
Whoa, we got lots of people.
You got people?
That's good. It's good to have good people.
Dominique's going to be here for old time's sake.
Advertising.
Retired.
Yeah, raise your right hand and repeat after me. I, Valerie Charlene Bishop,
I, Valerie Charlene Bishop,
do solemnly swear or affirm
do solemnly swear or affirm
that I will support,
that I will support,
protect, and defend
protect, and defend
the Constitution
the Constitution
and government of the United States
and government of the United States
and of the state of Florida
and of the state of Florida
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
domestic or foreign, and that I will
and that I will
bear true faith,
bear true faith,
loyalty, and allegiance
loyalty, and allegiance
to the same,
to the same,
and that I am entitled to hold office
and that I am entitled to hold office
under the Constitution,
under the Constitution,
and that I will faithfully perform
and that I will faithfully perform
all duties of the office of Commissioner
all duties of the office of Commissioner
of the City of Lake Helen,
of the City of Lake Helen,
on which I'm about to enter,
on which I'm about to enter,
so help me God.
so help me God. And it's chartered for you.
now officially a commission. The next item on our agenda will be the FROC update. You skipped one thing. Don't move. No, stay there. Stay there. Are there any deletions or modifications that any commission would like to add?
An addition, or several, if you don't mind.
Yes, ma'am.
One, I would like to add the citywide yard sale that is proposed for the December date under old business or new business, wherever you want it.
What numbers did you see?
Could we just do it between 6 and 7? Is that okay?
On the consent agenda? Okay.
Let me give you the difference there.
What's the title of it?
Where do you want it?
No, I was asking you after public.
Okay, after, yeah, put it before public forum.
Before public forum?
Yes,
Okay.
so it'll just be like a number 7 or something. Okay, and then that would be the citywide yard sale. To answer your question, that was presented in October for the December dates.
Right.
And then I just want to put what I'm going to bring up on my reports by zone into the air, so you may ponder. The first being the Volusia County building moratorium next week, and then several events that are local, and pending the conversation with Woodward and Kern this evening, a possible workshop for flooding. Thank you.
Okay, you remember that, right?
Yes, I've got it. I just wanted to announce it,
Okay.
so it's not hasty.
Yes?
I've also added something that can be discussed after we do the Woodward and Thorne presentation. It's a proposal for handling flooding problem on North High Street.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. At this point, we're did the update of the FROC report.
Good evening. First, I'd like to congratulate both of you for retaining your seat, and also thank you for deciding to do another term of public service. It is appreciated. All right, the FROC is Florida Recover. I'm sorry.
Give us your name.
I'm sorry. My name is Con Evans. I am with Your Girl Friday Consulting Firm.
Thank you.
FROC is the Florida Recovery Obligation Calculation. This is something that the state of Florida has decided to do to streamline the FEMA grant process. The reason why they began this process is because they needed better standards, there was accuracy issues, and they wanted to be more reactive to the governments and other tribals and nonprofits in returning their funds to them. So they've made it down to 4 items that they needed to address, and that's standardization, making sure everything is same across the board, procurement, procedures, and assessment. The reason why, so when you opted in to this program, it is broken down into 5 different categories. For the disaster readiness assessment is where you get your score for the category. The categories are contract administration, procurement, policy and procedure, documentation, and applicant experience. Over the past months, I gathered all of the information that the city had on file. I also created a few items as well. In the staff report that you have in your packet, it lays out all of the different items that needed to be addressed. I'm not going to bore the entire room with each item. Also, I will be coming back after the program has completed their review of the DRA, which was submitted on October 30th. As of today, they have requested more information, and I will be taking care of that within the next week. After after we receive their assessment, they will request an abatement plan. The abatement plan will include the items that you need to address as a city. When I have that, I will come back, we'll lay everything out and explain what needs to be done, because there will be policies and procedures that the city will need to address as it goes further. I honestly do not have anything further until I have the review of all of the information that I entered. So unless you have any questions.
Did you explain the
DRA is Disaster Readiness Assessment. That's what they're looking at to find out how ready you are, how in line you are with the FEMA and Florida state regulations, procedures, and policies.
And is this completion expedite any funds to us?
Absolutely. The higher the score, the amount of funds that are directly streamlined directly to the city. 80% is the highest thing. 80 is the score, but that causes 80% of your reimbursement to be streamlined.
Thank you. And this is the first time we've done this, right?
This is the first time we've done this. This is the first time a lot of people are doing it, so it's quite interesting to watch, and I'm excited to see how it plays out.
Thank you very much.
Mayor, let me just add
Yes,
to
sir.
that. Con also has been the point person involved in the diligence process, getting our initial paperwork filed with FEMA. The reports are starting to come in from the debris company involving pickup. As of today, we were about 8,200 cubic yards. We still got some areas to go. Ricky and I will be meeting with Crowder tomorrow, just to see what streets are left. But anybody who watches the video, anybody you talk to, if they have not got something out to the curb, they need to get it out as soon as possible. The goal is to be done by Thanksgiving. And with looking at the weather, I don't want to, because those big steady models give me a stomachache. Additional rain, and what could happen in terms of that, but the goal again is for them to be done in Lake Helen by Thanksgiving. So if you don't have it at the front, get it out as quick and as soon as you can. Because once they do that final pass through, then you may be on your own with disposal.
And that Thanksgiving deadline that we self-imposed, it predates the governor's requirement.
Mandate by the governor is January 12th.
Okay,
So
so
we
it's
will be well ahead of the governor's mandate.
Thank you.
Sorry, I do have a question for Ms. Evans. In regard to the, I'm sorry, I just missed my note on it here. It was about meals, and I was wondering what language is required. Is that something that we need to come up with as a commission?
Yes, basically, this includes any type of emergency measures or donations, meaning if you have staff that is working beyond or outside of the normalcy, and you're feeding them, or you have volunteers that are coming in and feeding them. They want to see that you have a policy already set that says when these items come up, this is how you are going to handle it, instead of just deciding to do it off the cuff.
Okay, and is that something that you would be able to provide as suggestions for?
Absolutely.
Or-
As a matter of fact, I already have provided the suggestion. The reason why I went and gave it to them, because they will review it and they will let us know if that's acceptable.
Okay.
And then I will present it to you.
Great, thank you.
Anyone else? Roger? Oh, they're going to be coming after this. Woodward and Corn, this is the discussion.
Well, they got their presentation and mine will start afterwards.
Okay, thank you. Come on.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. My name is Amanda Boone, and I am a project engineer and project manager with Woodard and Curran. And just wanted to talk to you a little bit this evening about what we are proposing to do
So first of all, I do want to acknowledge that you have a completed master plan. And you also have some current areas of concern. And I drove around this evening and did see some of those. What we are proposing, though, is that we move into the next step, which is to do a facility plan. And the reason that we are suggesting to do that is a few things, and we'll talk about that in a minute. We're also hoping to be completing for you a vulnerability assessment. You have a grant application into FDEP, and we hope to hear about that soon. And then in the future, we would propose to leverage any work that we would do now for you to then be built upon and improved based on any additional information that becomes available. So one of the things you may ask is, why is a facility plan needed when we have a master plan? And that is a very fair question. It's about funding. Quite honestly, the Florida Department of Environmental Protection sets forth some very specific requirements. They say the document has to have these things in it. There's a checklist that we have to go down and make sure all those items are accounted for. And by checking all those boxes, having a facility plan that FDEP can accept, it opens doors for you for future implementation dollars. So that's what we're looking to do, is make sure you have alternate funding sources available to you to pay for these projects that desperately need to be done. Now, the master plan that's been done does provide a great starting point. We would utilize the work done in that master plan in conjunction with input from the city to identify the areas of concern that are going to be evaluated in that facility plan. Now, we also talk about vulnerability assessment. Pardon me, the printout is a little out of order from what I was prepared for. That's okay. So, again, you kind of think, well, if we're doing a vulnerability assessment, what's the correlation between a vulnerability assessment and a master plan, or a facility plan, excuse me. Vulnerability assessment, same sort of thing. It's coming out of the Resilient Florida program. It has a very prescriptive nature for it. And it's going to look at the overall risk of flooding across the entire city. And so we're proposing to leverage the work that's done in the vulnerability assessment to take the facility plan to kind of what I would call the next level. Facility plans don't typically have detailed modeling done with them. They can be very high level. They check the boxes, but they don't give you a whole lot of real world solutions that you can potentially evaluate. By coupling the work that we do on the vulnerability assessment, specifically the modeling, and the work that's required for the facility plan, we can provide a better overall assessment of the entire city and zone in on those specific areas of concern. So the last thing is that the vulnerability assessment, in looking at the whole drainage basin, can provide us some additional insight to make sure that what we are looking at for areas of concern matches up with what we see in real life. So that is my very brief presentation. I suspect that you have questions, and I am happy to answer them.
I have a question. Future impact issues. How are you assessing future impact of the storm or the storm water not being able to move efficiently?
So it's a little bit of both. So when we look at doing the vulnerability assessment will look at 6 different scenarios. It will look at what a lot of people call a 100-year event and a 500-year event. It'll look at what those events do in the current year, a near planning horizon such as the year 2050, and it'll also look at a future year event such as the 2080. So that is what we would be proposing as a current 2050 and 2080 for both the 100-year and 500-year storms on the vulnerability assessment. With the facility plan, we could use that precipitation data and to inform that as well. But when you talk about what projects you want to do in the future, and what things you want to implement, that level of service that you want it designed to is really your call. And we can certainly get into the uncertainty that's associated with future planning horizons and larger storms. There's a lot more unknowns, but some people feel better saying, no, I want to design for a 500-year event instead of a 100-year event. That's a level of service call that is up to the community.
Has there ever been an assessment, I've heard it used, assess this as a 500-year storm that Milton was? Was that something, I mean, how do they assess that storm as being a 500-year storm as opposed to a 100-year storm?
Right, so it's a lot about the precipitation, the amount of precipitation you get over what period of time. So in Florida, you know, somewhere in the ballpark, depending on where in the state you are, because we have a lot of spatial variability in our rainfall patterns, but say a 100-year event in a good portion of the state is 12 inches of rain in 24 hours. 500 is going to be greater than that. It might be closer to 18. And then you start to get more rain than that, and you're talking about a larger event. So it's a statistical analysis, but it is correlated to how many inches of rain in a 24-hour period.
By any chance, do you remember the 2010 storm?
No, sir.
Okay, it was 26 inches, I believe. And
A lot of rain.
that was classified.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You stated that you run around our city today and that you took a look.
Very briefly, but yes.
Okay, so it's a brief look, because I was really going to ask you for some details.
I do not have any at this time. You know, if we go into doing the facility plan and even in doing the vulnerability assessment as well, there is an amount of data collection, and a lot of that is going to be some knowledge from the city of, okay, you know, where are these specific areas that you've had issues? Let's talk about them on a map. What happens? You know, so we can use that to inform what we're doing.
Okay, the reason I was going to ask for some details is I was really wondering, based on what I've seen, and I've been around the city quite a bit, it looks like we're kind of stuck for a while, that this isn't going to just go away quickly. We've got houses that literally look like they're on islands.
Yes. You know, I don't know what your recovery is going to be on this. I do know, in briefly reading through the master plan, that you are noted to have some closed basins within the city. And so that's something that has to be considered. And that does make for some more, you know, thoughtful solutions have to be determined.
So what is your time frame in possibly having everything pulled together?
I'm going to default to your city manager on that one.
I think on an agreement that we're looking, I think there was like an 8-month
Yes.
frame that you were looking to get back with us, and that is the facility side, and then also that helps track the funding. So we're not throwing away or wasting the money that was spent with the other company in developing the plan. But the facilities plan will help us get in line to go after state and federal funding to help pay for that. Now, keep in mind, folks, when I say state and federal funding, nobody pays 100%. So, you know, it's still going to be a significant investment on the part of the city. But at least based on the document that I did with them today, we applied for a $200,000 grant from the county. Today was the deadline. And if that's done, then that would be the grant that would fund the facilities. Am I correct on that, Mike?
Yeah, you're correct.
And Lynn also too, while the young lady speaking today might have been her first time in Lake Helen, but Ryan, who's with Wooder and Curran, he was out prior to Milton. He's been out post Milton, I think twice. And on the day of the hurricane, I was out with Rick and took numerous pictures and videos. And last Thursday, which was almost a month later, we went to all the same areas. So actually, I handed Con a thumb drive tonight with all of that for FEMA, so they will get the same documentation and information. So they're more aware than maybe what she saw tonight, just in coming in and driving around, in the sense of Ryan to see more of the impact, especially on the roadway over there at the Pennsylvania Church, and we've got, Michigan, we've got East Ohio, in addition to, Roger Metro, North High Street. So, well, I want to give the credit in the sense that, so maybe her first time coming before us, so it's not their first time getting boots on the ground here.
My concern is that the water's still rising. Is that it?
Yeah, in fact, I saw a report the other day that St. John's still has not crested, and they're giving flood warnings in the Astor area. And I know that's away from us, but that all eventually affects the groundwater, and you are right. I think both Lake Helen and, which in turn, Lake Harlan, are still creeping up versus going down. And as we've talked, there's nowhere to pump the water to.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So, given that we've had a representative out a couple of times, I know one of the areas that have been looked at was the North High Street area that's been flooded, and also we have, around the lakes, very much. Is there anything you can provide to us, educationally, to address those immediate needs?
It's okay to say no.
Yeah, not offhand, and stormwater's my area of expertise, and one of the things that I always worry about when we talk about, well, let's just go do something, when somebody says, let's just go do something over here, but you may move the problem, and that's always the concern, is you don't want to take it from here and move it over here because you didn't solve anything. So I can certainly understand the frustration with how much water is in this town at this time. I don't have a good solution for you right this minute, I'm sorry.
Okay, and is there, I know we talked about an 8-month for the facilities management plan. Is there more of a shortened timeline since this is so imminent? I mean, we're not even to the end of hurricane season yet. And, we have several ideas we're brainstorming here, but as an expert in the field, is there a shorter timeline you can provide for that?
So we're trying to get you a more detailed facility plan than what's required by the state. What they require is a very high level. We're trying to take it to the next level, and to do that, we need to do it in conjunction with the vulnerability assessment. We don't have a decision on the state for the funding for that yet, so there's no money allocated to do that at this time. That vulnerability assessment is going to provide that additional modeling to really look at some solutions and see what's going to work in what locations. I have a goal to expedite that vulnerability assessment so that you can then be eligible for some funding next go around. But it really depends on when the state gets to me, because there's only so much we can do in a short period of time. So I hate to promise something I can't keep.
I understand. Thank you.
So we are trying to expedite it, but there's a few puzzle pieces that are missing for me to commit to you that I can expedite that.
I appreciate that. The one thing that I'm struggling with is that we still have roadways that are flooded, and to me that feels unacceptable this far out from the hurricane. And and this is obviously not something that you can deal, just my thoughts about this situation. We're over a month out, and I have people that still have water in their homes, and I'm running into roadblocks every which way I can, and I don't like telling them, sorry, you're stuck with it. So I appreciate that you're working on it and trying to expedite it. Thank you for that. Well, I'm going to continue on my end looking into things as well, and hopefully it's a great partnership.
And exactly what Mr. Gleason was saying, if the St. John's is still staged up, and that's kind of ultimately where the water goes, if water runs into a wall of water, it doesn't go anywhere. It's unfortunate, and that's the tailwater condition that you have at the time. Sorry.
One of the recent suggestions that we had was possibly pumping to deep, which then goes into the St. John's. So effectively does nothing. Like you said, it moves from one location to another. And so another roadblock.
Yes.
Okay. We can have 1,000 failed ideas, folks. Keep giving them to us. We only need one to work.
We want to give you a good one.
when our master plan was developed, and like you said, there's a lot of things that you're adding to it, in terms of the funding and the assessments and stuff like that. They had a lot of good ideas in the master plan, but a lot of it dealt with dumping the water on somebody else's property, which I was totally against. And I started doing research and came up with a couple alternatives on places where the city needed to buy the property to put the water. And it was supposed to be added as an addendum to the master plan, but after talking with a bunch of the citizens after Milton, apparently it was not added. So if you need that information, I can give it to you. And the proposal, one of the proposals I got here is in addition to it, that follows the same process that I used in finding the other spots. Because as we go through, we're not going to be allowed to flood somebody else's place. We have to have a place to put the water. And one of the things the state is going for is they want as much water to remain in your community as possible to recharge your aquifer. So
again, one of the good things of doing the vulnerability assessment and the facility plan side by side in conjunction with each other is when we do the vulnerability assessment, we don't just look at the assets. Yes, we look at the critical assets, and the risk of flooding for those assets is kind of the primary focus. However, we're also looking at the parcels and the roadways. So kind of from the holistic standpoint of if you have this asset, let's say it's a lift station, okay? Let's say you have a lift station or you have an emergency operations center, whatever that asset is, and it's sitting on a parcel that's 100% inundated during an event, or the roadway to get there is completely flooded out and you can't get there. Well, just because the asset's high and dry, it may not be fully functional if the parcel and the roadway are flooded. So we'll have that information as well, so we'll be able to see that parcel inundation, and that coupled with the information that, yes, please provide to your city administrator so that that gets passed along to us would be appreciated. Because sometimes more land is needed for these solutions. I've had my own pumping stations that I've had to own and operate in other jurisdictions, and they don't always work as well as I wanted them to. And they're expensive.
yes, they are.
I have another question. One thing that I've been researching and talking with some folks about is the possibility of evaporation ponds and surface aeration using commercial aerating machines. I'm not sure if you're super familiar with the document research from Fresno State and Cal Poly on that, but they have like an evaporation rate study that they've done and how to calculate the amount of evaporation. And so I was curious if that's in your field of expertise, if you might know if you could have some success with that.
Certainly with some land that can be made available. I mean, any surface water body in the state of Florida is going to have evaporation. That's going to happen. That particular study I'm not familiar with, but when we look at stormwater designs, we do look at, how much is going to infiltrate, if any. What is going to, overflow to another location? What is going to evaporate? A lot of times in stormwater design, we'll dismiss the evaporation component of it because it's so small. We'll go, well, that's just bonus plan. And so we'll design more for infiltration and flow to other locations more so than evaporation. And if you're talking about, when you talk about the aeration, is that for other issues besides flooding?
No, I was wondering about the machines, the ones that cause the aerating of it to into a mist so that it can evaporate more quickly. And I'm not sure if that falls into your wheelhouse or not.
It certainly could. I'm not familiar with that being used here in Florida, but it's an idea.
One other question. in times of drought, and that's been something that we've had to deal with where we actually thought we were losing the lake. Is there a plan that could kind of, while the dry season is here, I mean, is there some implementing of a plan that can take that drought into your 500 or 100-year plan so that we can just, while it's not a hot item or wet item, that we can do something in preparation?
So one of the things that may be worth looking into when these water levels go completely in reverse and they're, really dry or nearly dry, is to really look at those lakes and ponds that you control, that you have control over as a city, and see if they're in need of any sediment removal. Has part of their storage volume filled in and that sediment needs to be removed? Because that could be impacting how much water they can store during the wet season if they have excess sediment.
I'm gonna basically go in reverse of what the mayor was talking about. I'm not an engineer, but certainly right now, it seems to me that with the waters being as high as they are, should we not have an engineer look at these areas to see if maybe a berm is too high on one side, what actually caused the problem in the first place, other than just a lot of rising water around?
When everything's flooded, it's kind of hard to tell, where the problem lies. I think your situation probably is more the amount of rain you got than anything. I think the modeling that we do as part of the vulnerability assessment, because we take into account the land use and the terrain and the flow patterns, and we take all that into account, I think we'll see a lot of what you're seeing right now in that assessment show up, on paper.
Is there anyone else? Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Let's move to the, was your question? You want to follow, right? Yeah, okay.
I gave a copy of PDF document from the Volusia County Appraiser's Office that shows the properties at the intersections of West Craig and North High Street. In reviewing the properties, my first proposal was to possibly look at adding a retention pond south of the Kraft property. But then I started noticing that there's two low-lying pond areas, swamp, I call them swamp ponds because they're not deep ponds. Just north of the lake that's behind 390 High Street. And there's some ground around it that can be added to it. That's something that would have to be evaluated and assessed by an engineer. But if the city could purchase these two lands, because the property owner's not going to be able to do anything with it because it's a low area and it's already in the floodplain. But the property is owned by William Hart Trust, and they're out of Fairfax, Virginia. So negotiations have to be done and stuff like that to be able to get the property, and then both properties you'd be able to take and dig the retention area a little bit deeper and bigger so that the water that fills into the pond behind 390 and those other houses around it would have another spot to go to fill in and not be flooding into their houses. So I would like to have this added to the addendum to the master plan as another possible location.
Correctly, this property that has the 391 listed on it, isn't that up higher than the other sections? Would that need to be dug out?
It's not 390. 391 has a house on it. That's where Mr. Kraft lives.
Okay, I'm sorry, could you repeat where you're suggesting is these two and
This
three?
area that's surrounded by the greens top square.
Right,
Those two pieces of property.
okay, I'm there,
These two.
okay. I'm sorry, I was
Those are
confused by the arrows.
Yeah, those are two low swampy pond areas that could be expanded to absorb the water from the pond behind the green. Yeah, the arrows go to what the current valuations as far as costs are from the property appraisers thing.
Okay,
And both of them together would be a little over $75,000.
okay, I thought that was wonderful, I apologize, thank you for clearing that up.
Yeah, that's all the copy of the property appraiser's information there that's off to the side for those two pieces of property. But I would like to have this added as to an addendum to the master plan to be able to be used for resolving the flooding issue in that area.
Who owns that big, large piece of property? Is that a body work or is it a lake?
Which one?
This one right here.
That is based on that 357 Craig, West Craig owns that.
But is it
This house is in, yeah, that's water. And that's deep water, it's a darker blue. This is shallow water, it's light blue. But because it's inside his property there, it's his pond. But this is city's right of way, which gives us access to that area to be able to do that work.
moving to the public forum? Heather. Oh, Heather, I'm sorry.
And Roger, I will get a copy of this to Ryan, just for them to have it in terms of what we talked about.
Is that something you're wanting us to consider purchase of immediately, or start the research on? That we
Well, that would be
suggested?
another thing for Woodward and Corn to look into on their assessment and financing and stuff like that.
Okay, and is that's for the facilities plan?
Yeah.
Okay, understood. Okay, the item I wanted to add was the action item requested at the October meeting by Ms. Ash for the December citywide yard sale, and it was requested that we waive the fees as we have for the other citywide yard sale that has been known and loved in our city for many years. And so, unfortunately, the hurricane came. I think there's a lot of residents that were unable to participate due to one thing or another. So I'd like to put together a motion that we waive the fees for the citywide yard sale. But I wanted to hear your input first before we do that and open it up for comment. Anybody?
Okay, so we're wanting to add another yard sale. That basically, is this piggybacking off of the original that's been, I guess, the city's been involved in for, I think, approximately 7 years, and we waived permit.
We can't hear you.
I'm sorry. So we're looking to waive permitting fees for a second round of yard sales. I read the memo that came out today. You'll have to forgive my voice, I'm sorry. I was a bit shocked when I read it, number one. But number two, I know that there was mention that the villas want to be a part of it. Well, number one, in the villas, you can't have yard sales. Only when you move in and when you move out. With the exception of possibly going to the Titcombs and asking them. But really my concern, there's two concerns. We've already got an established yard sale that's advertised all over the country, basically, or the state of Florida, were waiving permit fees one go around. Now we're going to do it again. And this is really including the county, which has a different set of ordinances. I just think that we're spending way too much time on this kind of stuff. There's too much business that needs to be taken care of. Right now, I don't even know, everybody was, in an uproar about the city roads and the conditions they were in with the first yard sale. And right now, our roads are really not in good shape. I mean, I was just down on the limb and right around the Lake Helen area. Nobody could get down there for the yard sale. I mean, I would be afraid to even walk through. I don't see the need for having 2 yard sales.
Well, and I don't think there's anything taking away from the yard sale that has already been established here. I think it's just adding the second one this year since the first one, unfortunately, very unfortunately, fell after some hurricanes. So, and I understand your concerns, absolutely.
So are we then going to make this an everything every year event? We're going to have 2 yard sales, or is this an exception to?
I can't speak to that. I just have the information that was presented to us at the October meeting, so I would have to defer to the event organizer. Ms. Ash, if you'd like to speak or answer that question, I don't have the information.
My name is Fiona Ash. I live here in Lake Helen. This isn't piggybacking off of anybody's event. This is not a city drama. This is not, all this is the majority of Lake Helen, to include city and county, asked that the previous yard sale be postponed. And the person who set that yard sale up insisted on having it when the city itself asked that nobody come into Lake Helen for any event. And the person who put the previous yard sale on insisted at all costs to have it. So this has nothing to do with what has happened the last 7 years. In fact, myself, I understand that you guys have received an email today that says otherwise, but myself and the entire gym has never had an issue with the yard sale for the past 7 years. All we asked was to please postpone it. And the curator of this needs to boost her chest for her ego. This has nothing to do with that. All of this is the city people want to have a yard sale. That's it. They weren't allowed that in October. There has been no drama from me. I have every bit of proof that the city, all of you can see. I haven't sent it to you because you all have way more time than our social media pages. So I stuck with the fact of all of us, not Fiona, all of us want to have a yard sale. That's it. And I have message after message, and to answer your question, ma'am, I actually have a message from Ann back in October, that states, "Good morning, are you going before the City Commission," Ann Robbins. Mm-hmm. You know her, okay.
Yes, I could.
City Commission on the 14th for the approval of the city-county yard sale. Julie asked me if I had heard anything. Everybody in the villa, her Ann, would like to do a yard sale, so that's why that was added into my email. I do find it suspicious that I sent the email and immediately there was a response from somebody who was not even on the commission, but that's a whole other thing. I'm sorry that you guys have been involved in this. I've attempted to only send one email asking a request, and that was it. And this isn't Fiona, this is Lake Helen. So,
But you said that you live in the county.
I live in Lake Helen. Ma'am, I live at 840 Pineda Road in Lake Helen, Florida, 32744. Thank you.
Well, we don't want to get into the drama, but
There's no drama.
Well, we don't need to start bringing up the past and all that kind of stuff. But
Okay, well, I'm just telling you what I'm asking for. That's it, and I answered your question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Let me just, from my own experience with the yard sale, the idea of the yard sale, the idea of the yard sales is that because they are permitted by fee, come in and you file, and you can pay for the yard sale. And it can be willy-nilly. You get ready to move out, put something out, you want to have a yard sale, fine. I think the original idea was that if we could do a unified yard sale where a lot of people who had things that they wanted to do at the same time, it would bring people into the community, as well as being able to give everybody, what is the fee for the yard sale?
$5, I believe.
$5. So it's not like the city is losing a lot of money, but it would be bringing people into the community. I think this last sale was kind of in the midst of a hurricane and the recovery, so that might have gotten some angst, but the intention was and is good. I don't think it's a big issue that if we have one or more yard sales with the ability to bring people in a safe environment that would give us the traffic that we may be able to utilize. So I think as an idea, the idea was hatched with great intentions to, I would say, over the period of time that I've observed them over the years, that it did put a lot of traffic in the city, and it was a very positive response. So just weather-wise, we had to deal with not only the yard sale had to deal with something that was completely unheard of, but the city had to recover from that as well. So I would think that there's enough room for us to bring this to whatever conclusion that it should not be something that we should become a $5 fee. It's really, that's just my opinion.
That's my opinion. It's like 1 yard sale, 2 yard sales, 3 yard sales. Nobody has a patent on yard sales. It's no big deal. And I do know that a lot of people weren't able to participate. And the one moving forward is a month out, and all of the debris has been picked up or will have been picked up by then. So that will help. Granted, we might have a couple of streets that they won't be able to go down because they're blocked off, but I'm pure evil. Yes, I don't know why that does that. Anyways, that's just my take on it. It's like it's a flipping yard sale and it's a community event, so I don't see the problem with it.
Do we want public comment first, or do you want a motion and a second vote? Oh, I'm sorry, Robert.
When I first heard about the community-wide yard sale, the original community-wide yard sale, it came during a time when all across the nation, communities were coming together and putting on a large yard sale. And I forget how long the biggest one. The biggest one, I think, is a couple states long. You got to drive along a highway, and there's thousands and thousands of people out there with their yard sales and stuff like that. And the idea was brought to the city to create something similar in Lake Helen that would bring people in and help people get rid of some of their stuff. What they call junk hunting. That's JUNQUE or something like that. But, and it was a very popular move and everything. As far as this one, I would like to see it spread out a little bit more time. Maybe have one in the fall, which is the current one, and one in the spring around Easter, to where they're spread out and they're not on top of each other. And I like the ideas of it, but they're just too close together.
I think the reason for that was because the last one, kind of, most people that had already had their stuff ready to go weren't able to participate, so they still want to get rid of what they had ready to go into that yard sale.
I've been trying to get rid of my stuff for 5 years.
Nobody wants that stuff.
Just because my grandma and grandpa has a bunch of antiques.
I also like to speak about the market in the park, which is one of another way that people could bring their stuff and kind of lay it out, without having to have people come and find their houses. As I look and I go to the market in the park, it's getting fewer and fewer people. that are coming out and bringing this stuff out. So, you know, whatever that does, it does. It was an outlet for people that, instead of having yard sale, well, let me just go on down to the Market Park. So there is a change that's happening in that. So
It's a lot of work to load everything up and then have to unload everything you don't sell.
it is. And so, you know, I think that the benefits of the yard sale is people who get a great deal will come there and find it, move, you know, so they don't have to go someplace else. And you can get rid of this stuff. I know I'm about ready to have one myself.
Well, there
on
you
my
go.
lawn. Anything else? Go to the order.
I'd like to make a comment on the market in the park. It fluctuates on the seasons. And right now, you're going to see more people coming to the market in the park because our northern residents are coming down. And they do a lot of shopping in the market in the park. And when you have an increased crowd, it also increases the number of vendors that show up to sell their stuff. So usually during late fall to early springtime is the busiest time for the market in the park. And then it kind of fluctuates up and down depending on the holiday through the late spring to early fall. But it's a great avenue that people use. I'm sure we might be able to negotiate with Karen, between the city and the Karen, on being able to maybe, if somebody wants to do an occasional yard sale at the Market Park, that they reduce the price for the resident in the Lake Helen or greater Lake Helen area that wants to have a yard sale at the Market Park instead of at their house. That maybe we can do that, reduce the cost for somebody like that. That's something that Karen and the city would have to talk to about, work on.
To address Commissioner Donato's concerns, I would like to suggest that our organizer, Ms. Ash, get with our city administrator for a list of roadways that are closed, and maybe that could be included in some of your advertisement or something like that, in order to keep people safe.
We've already mentioned that a couple of times.
Perfect, thank you.
Are you gonna make a motion?
Yeah, are we ready?
There's one to be heard.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion that we waive the fees for the citywide yard sale happening December 6th through the 8th, 2024, with consideration of closed roadways.
You got that? Is there a second?
I'll second.
The motion has been moved in second. We're for a vote. The comments? Other comments? Yes, please.
So I'm Nancy Wary. I am the curator and of the existing Lake Helen citywide yard sale. I have built this event over the past 7 years. I've spent hundreds of hours of my time and thousands of dollars of my own money to build this event for this community and for our city and our residents. We have never excluded anyone if they can't sell and they're not within the 4 mile square, which is part of the lure of our citywide sale. They can sell at the market, and that has always been a big plus for the market. Prior to Milton this year, we had the largest registration that we had ever had. We canceled Thursday, we canceled Friday, and with a lot goes into to build a sale like what we have done. We have become, if not the largest, one of the largest events that people come into the city for. Last year we had well over 4,000 people come into the city during the weekend for the sale. This year we had probably 400. We had, and it wasn't, we didn't have just less coming in or less sellers just because of the hurricane. Everybody in this room is very much aware of the vitriol that happened online by Ms. Ash. And And to ignore it is absolutely wrong. It is absolutely wrong for all of you to sit up there and to ignore the conduct this woman has had against me and against this sale. A sale that has served our community well for 7 years and there's literally hundreds of people within our city who have participated. I really can't even believe we're having this conversation. If she had come to me in a different way and said, hey, can we try to, do something? She didn't do that. She began attacking me personally in this sale long before Milton ever formed online, and it is all documented. Mr. Gleason unfortunately gave her a little bit of wrong information in her original email to him. And I know that Ms. Bishop supported her stance, provoking her to incite all this stuff going on online.
You don't see me online, ever.
You say that, but you say that.
She's got 24 seconds.
Okay.
Better finish.
So I'm going to ask you tonight not to approve this and to really look at where we are as a city if we allow this kind of behavior and conduct. I am a city resident, and I have been a hell of a volunteer and advocate for my neighbors and for this city. And if this is what you all allow,
Thank you.
God help us.
Thank you.
Okay, now I have something to say.
Well, before you do,
Okay.
as far as us sitting up here know what's on the Facebook page, I do not read the Facebook.
We are not Facebook police.
Well, let me finish. So I'm not in that group that you were classifying as who reads Facebook page. I do not. I just want to make that clarification. Yes.
You do get ripped apart on Facebook,
I
don't you?
don't read it. I don't read it. I don't have no idea.
I do.
Thank you. So, did you have something?
Yes, I do. I would like to say, I don't care what goes on Facebook. I have been off of Facebook ever since I became a commissioner because I don't need that crap in my life. And whatever, we don't monitor Facebook. I don't care what anybody says to Nancy. I don't care what anybody says to Fiona. It's not none of my business. That is social media, and the best thing y'all can do is to turn off your damn computers and walk away from it.
Thank you.
We have a motion and a second.
Is there a motion and a second?
Yes.
There is. Zone 1,
Yes.
Zone 2.
You come back to me.
You want it easy? I don't have it easy.
If you need a second, I would like to just say, I appreciate the effort that has been put forth as Mary in the past, for the past 7 years in your citywide yard sale. I think it's a fantastic event, and I don't wish for anything to be taken from you. I think you deserve kudos for that. That event has been fantastic for us. My intention tonight is simply for the residents that were unable to participate due to damage or whatever. So thank you for your thoughts this evening. And with that,
Yes.
thanks, ma'am.
Before I vote, can I ask Fiona a question?
Absolutely.
Would you consider after this yard sale to move to the springtime so that there's
I
5 to
think-
6 month difference between them?
I think the entire city, including Nancy, we have all talked about this, and people would like to have 2 a year. Mine is not to be October and then December, it's just this time.
Yeah.
And in the future, yeah, and I have reached out to the other curator, but that's not here nor there. So,
May I speak on that? Because I wrote you all a letter today.
Please. Yes.
yes, the answer would be yes.
Okay, then my vote is yes.
Zone 3? Zone 4?
Yes.
And I vote yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Now we are down to the public forum. I only have 2 cards. The public forum is where anything you would like to speak about, you have 3 minutes, put in the yellow card. And right now I have Mr. Alan Cook is on top. Good. Okay. Alan, is
Mayor, just
yes.
real quick, I just want to verify, because I wrote down that Heather had a couple of items, and I know you would have encouraged started when they spoke, but the dilution moratorium, so.
Oh, in my commissioner reports
Oh,
myself.
okay, got it. Okay.
Thank you.
I didn't want to make sure you were left.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Name's Alan Cooks, I'm 92 Oak Tree Lane. I have two things to say. And the one thing is that we owe, this town owes certain contractors and citizens a big thank you for going out at 7 o'clock in the morning in the storm and getting these streets opened for the fire trucks and the ambulances and everything else. I think they deserve a big, big thank you for that. Now, the second thing is, it was brought up to me. I have been cleaning these streets up from the storms for almost 30 years, 30-some years. And I got certain remarks about, oh, well, no, the only reason that we did with FEMA and stuff was that we wanted to get into a bigger company that was more professional and come in. Well, let me explain something to you. For all these years, we have worked through FEMA. FEMA's worked with us everything. Even when we burn everything else, FEMA has always been there for us. So I just want to let you know, there's two things. That it wasn't the idea of smaller, but the contractors. Tell you one thing, we got in and the street would have been cleaned up in 2 weeks. We'd have been done with this thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Fiona, you already spoke, so you're passing it. Kayla Troy.
Kayla Troy, 664 Mackenzie Road. This same property is going to be coming up on the agenda, but I know the thing I want to talk about is slightly different than what you're reviewing tonight. So I'm not here to stop development or stop a build or anything like that. My point would be that the auto mall property.
Can we do that when that comes up?
Yeah, but it's about the gateway overlay. It's not about the second reading of the, it's not, you know, so I wasn't sure. Do you want me to wait until then?
No, it's appropriate for her to
Yeah,
actually talk about this.
Okay, I wasn't sure.
Okay, you're in the right place.
Okay,
All right.
okay. So, you know, I'm on the Historic Preservation Board, so we review everything that's on the gateway and the historic, and our whole point in that is to preserve the charm of Lake Helen, which is part of our comp plan. My suggestion, I obviously don't have a lot of information about this. I think that that whole piece that Lake Helen owns of the auto mall property, it faces Orange Camp, and that technically is still our gateway. I think that this whole piece should be considered and adopted into our gateway overlay. If you look on our map now, this part closest to I-4 is in the overlay. All the rest of the Lake Helen portion is contiguous to that, and it's all owned by the same owner. So I don't know what the steps would be. Like I said, I don't have all of the information, but I would suggest, I think it's in the city's best interest to have our whole portion of the auto mall be under the gateway overlay. That truly is the first thing people see when they get off I-4 and they come to land. They will see this development. If it does not have our design standards and our development that is a preservation of who we are, we're going to have something very lost in that. So those are just my thoughts, and I don't think it'll come up tonight. I think from what I understand, it's supposed to be part of the planned development, like the PUD. So just keep that in mind. Those are my thoughts. That's it.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, Kate. Didn't want to confuse the two, but
Okay.
Tom? Here.
Good evening, Thomas Martucci, 261 East Michigan. Thank you for giving consideration. I don't know if it's been approved yet. The engineering firm to come in and do a review of this master stormwater plan. As you know from my last visit, I expressed a lot of concerns. I'm not an engineer, but I think you'll agree that a lot of that money that's to be spent uphill, with the exception of maybe High Street, is only going to send water faster into Lake Helen and Lake Harlan, which will only, again, push back uphill because it does not have an outfall or a pop-off to move down to Lake Macy. You'll figure that out. That's your job to tell me where I'm wrong or right. But really, I want to pose this question. you said 8 months, and I respect your profession, but you said 8 months to come up with a study, these two studies that have nothing to do with an emergency pumping permit. So therefore, my question to the board here is, as somebody who was driving through water every single day, 16 inches of water out one inlet and 12 inches out the other inlet, I'm thankful that I have 2 high vehicles, but I go to put my car in reverse, back out, and my brakes are stuck to my calipers. That's happening every single day in both my vehicles. My seals, my hubs in my vehicles will eventually let go. I'm afraid to check my diff fluid, but can the city consider bringing in gravel? We've seen this in Orange City, bringing in gravel on some of these flooded roadways to help residents get in and out of the water. I mean, this is, whether you're flooded or not, you have your tax dollars are allowing you at least a dry route to your home. I don't even have that. I think that's when we're talking about our reserves here and using them for emergency purposes, if we're going to use state money to pay for this study, which I'm glad we're going to do, or I hope we do, can we tap into some reserves to bring gravel in and raise some of these streets? At least where I'm at in Michigan, it's a very short run. So I just wanted to present that question for consideration.
Go ahead. May Hopkins, Circle. Oh, there you go. Sorry. If I mispronounced it.
Sorry, it's Sean Holtzhausen, otherwise known as Pikes. I own a company, Sorco, to clean up the lakefront.
Speak a little louder.
Clean up the lakefront. And then she was called and stopped them from cleaning up the lakefront. We've obviously been busy working with FWC closely. As soon as we found out the problem that we had done, which we didn't know about. Now FWC came back and said that literally the lakefront, because it belongs to us, it belongs to the city. And I want to get permission from the city to work on their property so that I can restore the lakefront to the way that FWC says it should be.
And I can answer that because actually had a conversation, and I spoke with CJ from the Florida Wildlife and Fish and Game, and what the gentleman was talking about is, they're allowed to clear up to a 50-foot corridor for their access to the lake, and in clearing process, some clearing was done further than that, so they want to actually replant and revegetate that area, but it's the city's strip. So while they'll do the work and they'll do the contractor, we have to do the application. So I was told that if the commission authorizes me to send an email to CJ, the Florida Fish and Game, they can issue the permit and they can work with the vendor that he's contracted with to replant the longer green strip on what I just handed out. The box that goes into the water that under there, that's the 50-foot. That is what they cleared, in reference for their access or whatever to the lake. So it's the longer strip going down would be replanted and revegetated. But he needs it to be done under the city permit because he can't get the permit. So I just need, unless there's some issue with the commission, that you grant authorization for us to go ahead and apply to the state for him to be able to replant an area that had been unvegetated by accident.
So, to get this straight, this might have been deletions or modifications that we could have put on the agenda to discuss and vote on?
This came up in the last
couple
of days. So no, past the agenda timing of when this came up.
I'm just, you're in the right place. You're in the right place. I just want to get procedures down. So you've already spoken to the administrator. He has this.
Yeah, we've been back and forth for about maybe 2 months now. Right. Obviously, maybe 3 months.
So that was with CJ and what happened. I just didn't get involved.
Yeah, well, to figure out what we've done wrong, and obviously FWC came out. They came to our property twice. Okay. We had a meeting with the city and with Sorco to try and find okay, what did we do wrong? We didn't know we did anything nothing wrong until we get a stop. All right. So then CJ at FWC said, well, we need to come and ask you guys for permission to obviously work on your property so that we can replant the vegetation.
Can you, can you work with this so we can get a way that we can?
Yeah, we can fix it. And what it is restoring it back to the shape was actually approved with some plants and things that he's doing in there. It's just the city has to be the applicant for the permit. He can't be the applicant, so I need to be able to tell CJ that this commission authorized the city to do an application with Florida Wildlife and Fish Commission for him to be replanting the area that got cleared up previously.
So, Roger, another point, and go ahead, Roger.
I'd have to look at my maps at the house because the only properties I know that the city has is by Royal Park and then on the north side, just outside of Jim Connell's property. There's a lot of property on your side of the lake that's actually what I think it's called Asperian right land rights. And that's the land underneath the water that's owned by people that live on Lakeview. And it includes part of the shoreline going up towards the property on your side of the lake. And I think it would have to be looked in further, but it may not be city property, it may belong to the people that live on Lakeview.
Well, this is coming from Florida Fish and Wildlife. They're the ones telling me that this is their research and that the city would have to do the permit for this strip that he's talking about.
I think we need to check it further.
Well done. Yes. Did you have something, Rick?
Yeah, I met with CJ and the homeowners out there, and CJ was also taken back by that we own the small strip there in that area. There's a few more places we do own, and the only reason he has to come here now is because we did own that little strip. Had we not owned that little strip, he would not be here, and we wouldn't be involved at all. But as us owning that little piece there, we have to have the permit. They'll restore it back, Sorco will restore it back, put it back where it's got to be, and that's all they're trying to do to get it back so they're in compliance. Nobody knew, CJ didn't even know that we own the strip right there. We always thought we owned Royal Park, like you said, that other park, but there's also a couple other spots he said we own too. So we're going to look into that also. But they're just trying to get it back. Sorco's going to replant it back to put it back in compliance with FWC, but he can't pull the permit because it's our little strip of property.
I think we're going to need to check with the property appraiser to find out the lines because that is Asperian land right.
Yeah, I know, like Joe Hamilton, most of them own all the way across.
Yeah.
And I'm familiar with that, but some of them do, but apparently maybe somebody, because that was former Commissioner Michael Woods who bought that property and sold to him. He may have inadvertently gave us that without us even knowing. I don't know when it was done, but I wouldn't put it past them to give us that strip so we can maintain it.
Okay.
That's what I'm kind of thinking happened.
So that's a possibility.
Yeah, so we got to research this to get some.
CJ's done extensive research. What they're trying to do now is Sorco is trying to make good on what happened because he didn't know that we own the property. And FWC wants it restored back to the proper planning and everything to get the lakefront back.
Okay, so, just a question. What do you need from us to do?
Authorize me to initiate an application with CJ on behalf of Lake Helen to restore this strip under the guise of the rest.
Would we need a motion or can we do a consensus?
Well, consent, just something that the five of you say, work with CJ,
Okay.
get him straight.
I would ask for consensus.
I have a question.
I'd rather do a motion.
Okay, on this email from Mr. Green with FWC, it does say select removal and revegetation area must remain vegetated and maintained free of nuisance and invasive plants, but it does not specifically cite native plants. Is your intention to plant native only?
By FWC standards, it only has to be native plants. We know that
That's what I thought was so ironic.
Yeah, the things when Circo came out, all the plants were invasive. everything. There was not one native plant there. And that's why they said, well, we can take it out. There's nothing native, you know what I mean? And that's why they actually said, okay, they're going to all out the roots and everything to try and get us a nice clean lakefront. And then obviously, as I said, the FWC got involved, and now it's just a whole big dilemma.
Yeah, it'll be native plants. CJ, what they allow to go back will be native plants.
The FWC permit actually goes into it more in depth than what this water does.
Yeah.
It goes down to itemizing the series of types of plants.
CJ's done all that, has actually given us CJ's done all that work already. We had the last meeting, this plants this month, and we gave it all to Sorka as well, so that they make sure it's done correctly.
Yes, sir.
Since it's our land, city's land and city permit, the only question I kind of have, and maybe what we just need is a simple agreement, is if he doesn't comply with that permit, the FWC's probably going to us. We're the owner, we got the permit, it's our responsibility to comply with the permit, not his. So maybe we need a simple agreement with him to say that at least we have a contractual agreement with the property owner saying he will be obligated to comply with this permit. And at least we have a contractual obligation that if something goes wrong, we can look back to that property owner.
Yeah, I'm not sure what they did with the Lake Committee when we got them a permit for them to clean up Royal Park.
Well, if they got the permit, that's different.
No, they didn't get it. We had to get it for them to be able to clean it.
Because generally, this person heard of it, so generally what I'm hearing is you did something unknowingly on our property that violated state law or some law, and you're doing the remediation to correct it. So
that's correct, yes.
Technically, you put us in violation. Not intentionally, but technically it's our property, we're in violation. We gotta get the permit, he's gonna restore it. So I just think we ought to have an agreement, say.
Not me, Sorka, I'm the company I hired.
I'm
not going to go dig there myself, I don't know.
But you hired him, whatever, but it's our property, it's our permit. If the restoration, it sounds like it's a pretty simple process, you know, but anything with environmentalists isn't simple, it really isn't. I mean, so it's not gonna, there's probably a lot more to it. And I just think we ought to have something in writing with the property owner saying, the property owner agrees to comply with the terms and conditions. So we have contractual. If something goes wrong, we can look back to it.
Is that a motion?
Yeah, I'll entertain that motion that we allow the city to get the permit as long as there's a contractual agreement that they abide by the permit.
Must I sign it or must Sorka sign it? This is my question.
Who's ever going to do the work?
Well, Sorka's going to do the
We will work with that.
Yeah.
I'm just, you know, me signing is going to mean nothing because I can't, you know, I mean.
He's your contractor, right?
That's right.
You hired him to do work and you thought it was your property. And he probably thought it was your property because you hired him to do the work, presumably. But I think the contract ought to be with you because ultimately you're responsible for the contractors who do work on your property. And what they do outside the property, damage the property. You have a contract with them, and that's fine. You have a contractual relationship with them. I don't want to chase him. I don't know where he's at. I know where the property owner is. And so I think our contract ought to be with the property owner and say, whoever the property owner is, you need to comply with it. You contract with whoever you want to do that. And we can do a three-party contract if you want. I don't mind putting him on there too. We'll work it out.
Second.
Second? Okay, we have a motion and a second, all in favor? Discussion, I always think it was both that. Anybody from the audience who'd like to have a comment to say what we're doing right now? Hearing none? Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Hear none? So moved. Thank you. And you'll work out the. Okay, where are we now? Public forum, just now, please, no, there's one more letter, one more yellow card. Did you want to have a comment?
I do. Nancy Weary, 435 West Delaware. I would like to know why our city has not applied for any of the 386 money for the county when other municipalities within the county are literally receiving
Mayor and
millions.
Commission, we have applied, we applied for $200,000, so her facts are correct.
May I finish, please? Other cities are receiving millions of dollars. Daytona received 22 million. The smaller city of Edgewater, which is a little bit larger than ours, has received 14 million for their infrastructure and their flooding. $200,000 is nothing compared to what we could have. Our stormwater master plan, our capital plans are less than $5 million, and if we received half of what Edgewater is receiving, we could cover all of our issues right now. And it is free money. All we have to do is fill out the paperwork. We don't have to meet and match. We don't have to do all these things. We have a very small window to apply for what is left over from Ian. And then there's going to be more money available for our city and for our residents. It is not just for residents, it is for infrastructure and stormwater. And it would save us a lot of time, 8 months of trying to get money from the federal government, something that may not happen. This money is ours, and we should be able to apply for it immediately and receive it from the county.
We've applied for it immediately, and if we are given it, that money will pay for that $200,000.
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
You applied for a few $100,000.
Right? You doing it? This is not money they voted on yet. This will go on a future commission agenda.
That's correct. So the
So
Transform
this isn't
386
current money that's been handed to anybody.
the Transform 386 program, they reopened back up for stormwater planning only. And so we applied as of yesterday for $200,000 to decide to Lake Elm stormwater planning. There's still money left in that program, and so the intent is that once we figure out what those actual action items are, that we will then reapply, hopefully through that program. It's one of the mechanisms, amongst many others, to help fund these projects.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Well, I'd like to say, obviously I was going to speak on Transform 386, so I don't know if now would be the appropriate time to do this.
Anyone else? Okay. Approval of the minutes, consent agenda. The consent agenda. Thank you. Does anyone have a specific that they'd like to address? Okay, and the minutes?
I'm not in the minutes.
Okay, so we'll call the minutes separate, and the bills paid, and then the acceptance of the errors. Is there any motion on the minutes to accept the minutes that's been read for the previous meeting?
Mayor,
Yes.
in the future, we're not going to have a consent agenda because it never works like a consent agenda.
I understand.
So we're just going to go ahead and put these items on individually because
Individually from
a
now on.
consent agenda typically has a motion to approve. If there's an item you don't want to talk about, the motion is to remove that one item and then vote on those items you don't have an issue on. Every meeting I've been here, we have never done it in 9 months, so there's no reason for a consent agenda if we're not following what a consent agenda is for.
We all understand that in the consent agenda, as he explained, it's usually just a blanket. If there's something in the modifications and deletions that they would be moved, in that point in time, we deal with address them. So where we are now, we are at the minutes.
So could we have a motion first with the consent agenda?
Okay.
And if someone wants to move something, then pull it and then vote on the remaining.
All right. Let us.
I just have a question on the bills paid.
Okay.
Okay, I make a
motion that we approve 8A and C.
A and C.
Second.
Motion moved in second. All in favor? Aye. Discussion? I keep trying to keep people out of discussion.
Not them, but for us.
Yes.
For us, that's a question.
Yes.
That's good.
We got a motion for 8A and 8C, which is 8A is the minutes, 8C is the budget variance report, and the bills that we have separate discussion.
Y'all voted on the A and C, right?
Not yet.
Not yet, we're getting ready to vote on 8.
Who made the motion?
Yeah. I second.
And that's where we get ready to vote. Discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Passes. Now to D. This is the bills. Any issues on the bills that we'd like to?
It looks like some of these bills are double. Again, it's like the same, it's a duplicate bill on some of these. And I thought we fixed that problem.
Well, tell me, because you will see a same check number and a bill, and I'll give you an example. If the credit card comes in, and the credit card, using that as an example, was used to purchase items for different departments.
Right.
You're gonna see it on here multiple times because it's based on the line item that it's charged to for reimbursement. So,
These aren't credit cards.
I was using that as an example, so what, because,
There's one here for Lawson Products, and it actually is 3 of them for $29.91. Then you got, screws,
What page?
oh, I'm sorry, page 1. Then you've got, assortment of nuts, screws, and washers, $102.41, same amount twice.
yes, but if you look over on there, you will see, Charlene, under the account number, one is a number 410154152000. The second one is account number 720157252000. So though that was, one was allocated to one line item and one is allocated to another. So there, that's, so you may see the same item, but it's telling you what line item is actually been charged to.
Kind of
Okay, so
weird.
can we look at GSC, Gordon Supply Company? One. The post date was 10/31. It was for dust mops and refills, each in the amount of $77.50, and they go to the same payable number.
I've got a 1301 and I've got a 7201.
They're two separate bills, no.
I've got 2449, 2449.
CSC Gordon Supply.
Oh, you want you to look over here.
That, yeah, it's the account number.
Oh, okay, so
That's where,
the payable number is the check.
yes,
Okay.
yes, sorry, I get you now. I was reading
Okay.
this. Yeah, no, the account number is why you will see, that's where it's being allocated.
We go through this every time,
Yeah.
every meeting.
I know, and it's awkward for debating stuff that has already been spent, so we're not getting the check back, if this is implemented in the budget.
That's why I never vote yes.
He's right. What happens is if we get supplies, some of it gets split between all the departments. Not one will do it. If it's utility only, like flag tape, it'll come out there and go there. But if we get nuts and bolts that will apply to everybody, I have Aaron split it between each department so everybody pays their fair share. Same way with when we do the power bill and all that kind of stuff, we split it between streets, parks and rec, and utility. So you'll see it multiple times, but it's the same amount because we split it. And then you may see one extra because it's from another department directly to it. That's probably what you're seeing right now.
We need to get educated on this every meeting.
Yeah, but Jim was right, that's exactly what happens. You'll get a split all the way down for it.
If we really want to get, not not complicated. You actually then you take that number on the account number and go to your budget variance report and see exactly what line item that was under.
Did I vote yes?
Can we make a motion? Can we separate that, this motion on the bills?
Make a motion that we accept the bills paid report.
Motion second. Motion second. All in favor?
Comments.
Comment?
Oh, comments.
Public? Comment? Public? Commissioner? All in favor? Aye. So moved.
No, you guys saying opposed.
Opposed? Oh. Okay, I just got, I just, wait, one no.
Compliment, then turn around and ignore me.
All in favor, all,
Oh, no, any opposed, we already.
any opposing? Yeah, I'm going to go backwards. Any opposing?
No.
No. No opposed.
Yes, sir.
No, yes, you opposed. Okay, 4-1. Motion carries. Thank you. All right, moving right along. The consent agenda, the public hearings. That subdivision is the first one?
Yeah, it should be under tab 9.
Tab 9, public hearing, yes.
Mayor, on this one, I would advise you, this is a quasi-judicial hearing, so any public, any quasi, or any ex parte communication should be disclosed.
As this is moving into a quasi-judicial, or does anyone here have a ex parte communication with anything we're about to vote on? I'll speak on. None? Where did he?
He's tired of us.
Okay.
A massive
Okay. I'll grab it quick. The first one is that subdivision, plat review. Comments?
Would you like a presentation?
Please. Oh, that's what you're here for.
That's what I'm here for.
Yeah,
But
I
if
thought
you
you
don't
taking
want,
Roxanne's
listen,
place.
if you don't want a presentation, you don't have to have.
Please do. It's all.
So this is a very, very simple subdivision on Pravat in East Ohio. It is essentially creating 10 lots. The layouts are here if you're interested in reviewing the plans, and 2 tracks. What they're going to do is they're going to be doing also some improvements along East Ohio and putting in a water line along East Ohio. So there will be some construction associated with this project, but it's going to be limited because there's no street going through the subdivision. All of the lots are accessed from the outside, so they're accessed from your existing roadway network. So PLDRC heard this request on October 28th. At their meeting, they voted 5-1 to approve the preliminary subdivision with one condition, and that is requiring that an updated environmental assessment be submitted and approved prior to the approval of the development order for the subdivision plans. So not this step, but the next step is the actual construction drawings for the improvements that you see kind of in a hatch mark on the lower portion of the PSP. That will have to actually be approved before we can approve that. That's administrative approval. We need an updated environmental assessment and all of the permits that are required for the construction. So that is what we're asking for, because the applicant at the time of the PSP did not want to update the environmental because they're only good for 90 days, and then update them again. So they asked that they could move that to the next step, which is development approval, which we're very comfortable with because the development plans are already been reviewed by myself and the engineer, and we have no comments on the development order. It's just this step has to happen before the development order can be approved. So we have no concerns or comments on this. They've addressed all the concerns and comments we have here. The applicant is with us tonight. If you have actual questions that are needed. We did take a lot of testimony at the PLDRC hearing. There were several residents, a lot of people spoke about. We did hear a lot of the flooding issues because again, this was after the storm. A lot of people had concerns, especially the neighbor, with what's happening with the drainage retention area and the existing pond on site, and the drainage improvements that are proposed that basically to drain this area back into the drainage retention pond that's shown on the tracks. And essentially, PWC all voted to recommend approval of this. It was a 5-1 vote, and through that, we also discussed possibilities of there's a large oak on the property, shown on the property, and if the applicant would be interested in seeing if they could save that tree. The applicant can speak to this, but what they basically told me was that because of the particular drainage system that they have here, that oak is going to be in the path of the drainage path to reach the back pond, and as a result, they're going to have to remove that tree because of it's going to end up being undermined anyway because of the fact that the drainage flow is going to. But the applicant can speak to that because they've done that study. So with that, I can answer any questions you have, but I want to go on and on and on a very simple subdivision.
Howard?
I'm looking at all the drainage areas and I don't see it getting anywhere near the tree.
Do you want to, Chris, do you want to address that? I'm going to have the engineer come down and address that, because it's his research.
Good evening, Christopher Blurton, with Interplan LLC, 220 Central Parkway, Hopkins, Springs, Florida. The tree in question, there's actually two, what the city considers heritage trees on site. Those are 36-inch oaks or larger. Those are proposed to remain. So those are the ones, the two that you see there with the circles around them that are not in a building footprint, those are proposed to remain and will remain protected. There is a, sorry, go ahead.
I thought that was what she was talking about.
No, not this one.
No, there's actually another, I think about 32 or 34-inch oak tree, a little bit below that threshold, but unfortunately it is in the berm of the retention pond. The retention pond has been designed to hold the entire runoff from the subdivision from a 100-year, 24-hour storm with some freeboard in that pond. So there's actually additional storage still in the pond after a 100-year storm. If we did modify the pond to save that tree, we did look at it, but unfortunately it would severely impact the flood retention capacity of that pond. So we thought, especially considering the issues the city is currently facing with flooding, public safety and flooding was a little bit more important than saving one additional tree.
The other question I got is the sidewalk going down East Ohio.
Yes.
How wide are you proposing that sidewalk?
I believe we were recommended to put in I believe it was a 7-foot sidewalk. It's kind of a multi-use path. The minimum I think that the city requires is a 5-foot, but yes, it's a 7-foot wide sidewalk.
To be considered part of the trail, it's got to be a minimum of 10 feet. By the county standards for their trails, it's got to be a minimum of 10 feet.
I think I could probably go ahead and agree to a 10-foot sidewalk if the city, if the commission would prefer that.
I wouldn't be able to meet the trail standard.
I think we could accept that as a condition.
This is 10, it's just 10.
Yeah, it's 10, it's 9 here, and then there's one that actually acts as your so it's 10 total units.
Yes. We are preserving approximately 15% of the property as tree preservation and woodland preservation area. Another 10 or 12% of the property is going to be stormwater retention area. So that's essentially almost 30% of the property that's either going to be preserved as tree preservation area or as stormwater retention area.
And that's just for the subdivision. The individual lots will have open space that will be maintained when they're developed.
Yes, we have limited the lots to 20% of various service area, which is less than the standard city or the standard city maximum, I should say.
My eyes aren't very good, sorry. I'm always using my glasses.
I feel your pain, so I'm putting my reading glasses. Those are the senior size plans. Those are the little.
That's why we always make sure we have one side.
And just a little bit of thing on the county's trail requirements is they want their trails to be 12 feet wide, but they allow them to go down to 10 feet in certain areas. And since it's going through a city, they allow them going through cities to be a little bit narrower, so they allow the 10-foot one. That's why I asked if we could do that.
Sure. Yeah, well, I'm a bicyclist myself, and I know trying to fit a bicycle and a pedestrian on a 5 or even a 7-foot sidewalk is a bit of a tight squeeze.
Make a motion that we accept the PLDRC's recommendation on the Lake Helen Vervat preliminary subdivision plat. I don't know, is there a number assigned?
With the addition of the 10-foot.
Oh, with the addition of the 10-foot sidewalk.
And including the condition for the updated EA prior to development order approval.
Well, isn't that
Yeah.
PLDRC's recommendation?
We just want to make sure it's very clear.
Well, that's why I
to the
said
applicant.
that we were approving their recommendation with the addition of the sidewalk.
Motion? Second. Is there a
I'd like,
second?
no, I'd like to add one more small condition.
Well, technically, the motion would have
Right.
to go after the second, and then we'll look at further discussion.
Yeah, I'll withdraw my motion. Make it
Or they're
clear.
gonna have to.
Okay. Motion withdrawn.
Okay, so I have a thing for trees, and taking down 32-foot trees hurting my heart a little bit. Is there any way we could replant one or two as a condition?
We can't replant a 32-inch tree, but
Right, something that will grow that is native and will help with stormwater.
I think we could plant a cypress tree or two, or a red maple perhaps.
I was going to suggest a red maple. They hold quite a bit of water. I think 150 gallons per tree at the maturity, so that would be my suggestion. But something comparable to that would be fantastic if you're agreeable to that.
I think we could plant 2 trees in the retention area, 2 water-loving trees, yes.
That helps so much.
Is there a vote?
Same motion with the addition of the trees.
Second.
All in favor? Any discussion? Aye. In favor? Public comment. Remind me, public comment, please. That's not yet. That's the auto. All in favor? Aye. Motion passed. Any nays? Any nays? No. Okay, we're having fun tonight.
What we can do is, if you don't have a car for
Yeah.
that item, then the public will decide if they don't want to comment, so we can go ahead and move on.
Thank you so much. That's a good point. If we don't have a blue card, then we'll just move it beyond public comments. So, next one is 9B, which is the cyber security. Resolution?
I'll read it if you're secure resolution. Resolution 2024-14, Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lake Helen, Florida, adopting the National Institute of Standards and Technology Cybersecurity Framework and authorizes Chief Technology Officer to complete the local government cybersecurity standards attestation form via the Florida Digital Service online portal before January 1st, 2025 deadline, provided for severability and providing for an effective date.
Comments?
Before you ask, I assume our cybersecurity officers.
One more hat.
Chief Technology Officer.
I can follow up on that. I mean, 2 things. One, we are contracted with Big Sur IT, so a lot of the programming, the software, and whatever that's required and what they need to do is being run through them. The state requires this to be passed in reference, for us to be able to enter into, I think it's by January 1st of 25. That we pass this, and also for you all to know, on Monday, next Monday, November 18th, half of the staff is going to a cybersecurity leadership and strategy executive seminar put on by the Volusia League of Cities, and it's being done in the morning and being done in the afternoon, so half of us are going in the morning and half are going in the afternoon, and it's one more step for completing the things that are necessary as the IT security guy for the city.
That's what I was gonna ask about, because Tuesday they asked that question on, since the opening came up, is the city really gonna attend our class?
Oh, yeah, we jumped on it, and yeah, we're committed.
Okay. Any motion? Any discussion?
Motion to approve resolution 2024-54.
Second. Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Opposed. Resolution 2024-15.
Resolution number 2024-15 by title only for first and only reading. A resolution of the City Commission of the City of Lake Elm, Florida, approving the final budget amendments for the fiscal year 2023-2024 annual budget, providing for an effective date.
Mayor and Commission, what this is a budget amendment to balance the 23-24 budget. Previously under consent, you had the September report. The city ended up the year at 7% over budget. That amount was $380,000, $380,126. And I can tell you where that is. The four key items that make up that difference were $33,500 for the CA search, $70,000 additional police department pension contribution that was required by the fund. Even though we are paying the ECHO grant in over 3 years, for accounting purposes, the $156,000 is being written off because we do accrual accounting on a cash basis. So it's being written off in this year, and then $120,000 on Melissa Park. Those four items total $380,200 and $380,126. So that's the open.
Discussion? Motion?
Motion to accept resolution 2024-15.
Second?
Second.
Motion moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? There are none. So moved. School.
Heather, Heather, text amendment?
Second.
Okay, this is the second reading for, are you going to read the title? Okay.
Ordinance number 2023-02 by title only for second and final reading. An ordinance of the City of Lake Elm, Florida, Chapter 2, comprehensive plan by amending the goals, objectives, and policies text within the future land use element related to allowable uses within the employment center future land use, providing for severability, codification, and conflict, providing an effective date.
Okay, so this is second reading, slightly delayed. The initial first reading was a little over a year ago at this point. And essentially what is occurring here is we are amending just one of the future land use categories, which is the employment center category, to add the additional, to allow units to, housing units to the actual category. What is being proposed at this time is addition of 348 units to that employment category to allow for multifamily. It's being restricted to essentially the former auto mall site. So yes, in the EC category, but only on that southern portion of the property can you actually develop any kind of multifamily. The intention of this was a settlement between the developer and this board negotiated through the city administrator, not Jim, but your previous city administrator, so that the developer was not going to use the local project where you would have zero control. The idea is the developer is asking you to do this so that they can go through your development process and develop a project that would be a cohesive mixed-use project on that site, that would work with what's happening on the DeLand side, and it would complement that DeLand side development. This is the first step in that, for that to move forward, where there's going to be additional housing. At this point, there is no PSP that's been, or there is no plan development that's been submitted in beyond the original plan development that's out there that's expired. So the existing zoning that is out there is null and void because it was never acted upon, and it is expired at this point because they never built on it. So as a result, they got to come back through that process and go through basically a negotiation with this board and with the planning, with the PLDRC to establish a new master plan for that PD. Okay, so all the uses and anything that they want are going to be opened all back up. This just sets the land use to allow them to ask for multifamily should they want to have multifamily included in that development as part of that PD. This has to occur, otherwise the only other option is to, because it's a commercial zoning, to use that Live Local Act, which essentially takes that out of this commission's hands, and they have to follow the Live Local law and your administrative review process. So that is what we're here to decide tonight, is this was the negotiation between the developer and essentially this board to provide an avenue where the public will be able to participate in the process of what actually gets built there as part of your regular plan development process.
I have one card on this one.
Probably prefer to have the applicant speak first, and then.
The applicant, there he is.
Good evening. For the record, Mike Woods with Copple, 231 North Woodland Boulevard here in DeLand. I don't really have much to add from what I was able to explain on this process. I will be the face moving forward when we go forward with the PD process. I think you were working with Mr. Watts initially when the all came through. Mr. Joe, I think, was dealing with the point person on the project now, but I'll be working on this along with the city of DeLand side as well. Looking forward to bringing this before you, and just happy to have the comp plans be complicated sometimes, and we know that sometimes deadlines and processes and procedures get a little out of whack, so we really appreciate the help that, understanding what happened and then getting it back on the right track. So appreciate that. Look forward to working with you guys on this. And happy to answer questions you may have.
You mentioned as opposed to the Live Local, is there some trade-off that we have in terms of Live Local?
My understanding, so this is all of my understanding, because this all predates my tenure here, and actually Jim's tenure here too. My understanding is that there was a negotiation to basically provide this avenue as opposed to them running through the Live Local process, because the Live Local process is going to develop a project that is not going to be of the same quality that you're going to be able to accomplish through the PD process, because they would have to meet all of the standard zoning requirements of your employment district, rather than using a higher level of design through the PD process. So this was a negotiation, one, to provide an avenue so that the public can actually be part of this discussion, instead of it just coming through the Live Local project and they have to accept what's in the zoning, right? Because it's conventional zoning, you end up using the existing underlying zoning to design whatever project, because under Live Local Act, you can put multifamily in any kind of commercial zoning as long as you're meeting the requirements of the state statute, which are for affordable housing. But again, the affordable housing that they're actually targeting is that moderate level, so it's more of like workforce housing, and those units tend to actually be more of equivalent to market rate housing, right? So you're not getting affordable housing in the true affordable housing sense. It's more a targeted market under that Live Local Act. And the idea was they can't have as much flexibility under the PD to design a project that you would be proud of, and you can't get it in front of you without going this way. This was the avenue that was discussed.
And Heather and Scott correct, I think there's another benefit on the way they're going, is if it had been under the Live Local, then it would have been subsidized, and it would also involve tax credits, which would have lowered the tax value of the property.
Only if Volusia County agrees to it, and almost every county has basically gone forward and decided that they're not going to provide the tax credit. So theoretically, yes, they would get they could apply for tax credits as long as they provide the requirements of the law to meet those things. So every year they have to recertify the number of units, they have to provide all of the required covenants, they have to prove that the incomes of the people in those units are still within the framework for that target market. As long as they do all of those things, yes, they get a subsidy through the tax, through the property tax, which again is not ideal. But that's the idea of that law is to provide an avenue for affordable housing that hits a target market and to provide an incentive to developers to actually provide it. That's what the tax benefit is for. That's the incentive, so that's the carrot, trying to get people to build this affordable housing for that target market. And there was some type of negotiation. Again, your record is a little fuzzy on this because it kind of went back and forth between DeLand and Lake Helen, and everybody got involved. And so because of that, it's kind of muddied the waters here. But the agreement was that they would try this avenue because it would provide an avenue for an open public forum to design this project, essentially. Developer with this commission on behalf of the residents, and the residents that can participate through the process because they would have planning development review board to discuss that, and then also at this level, at the city commission level, before they go through. Because again, it's going to follow the same process, right? It's a hearing it before planning development review board, and then it's 2 hearings here before they can actually even submit me in any kind of site plan that where they can turn dirt. They still have to go through the whole entitlement process because your zoning no longer exists on that property. It does say PD on it, it's just a PD with no master plan, so the master plan is fine.
Now, are you speaking about the, when the Live Local came out, it was approved in July, and then in September, when we were over in the school, you came to us to modify something so that we could comply with Live Local, but now it's changed.
No.
Just clear.
Basically, what happened was, I'm going to quickly summarize it. The city took a particular position that they didn't want housing there. They said they wanted all commercial. That was initially a decision, and the commission voted down an amendment, I think. And then the local change came into the picture, and that changed everything. All your decisions they couldn't put out the door. They now had a right to go forward and put residential there, whether you wanted it or not. The deal was going to happen. But 40%, I think it's 40% has to be affordable housing. So, yes, the public process is important. I don't want to offend anybody, but we didn't want affordable housing. That's basically what it was. So we said, let's come up with an agreement that will allow you to build there, and we can't prohibit affordable housing from going in there, but Live Local required them to make a certain amount of those homes affordable housing. The city didn't want to do that. We tried to avoid that. We could demand, because we have a low amount of commercial and industrial, less than 20%, the law says, in terms of our overall city, we could require a mixed-use development, but that law is not real clear how it applies either. So, and this is when working with Rob Dunn at the time, we just said, let's go forward with amending to make it clear in our comp plan. Rob was, the applicant was saying, you could interpret the comp plan to say we could have residential because it said ancillary, these commercial uses and ancillary uses, and maybe residential could be ancillary. And I kind of said, that's a stretch. If we're going to do it, let's do it right. Let's go through the process and amend it. Let's specifically say you can have how many residential units you want to have in there. That was discussed some in a meeting and a workshop over there at City Hall. And ultimately we agreed on what we agreed to. And we went through first reading, but that was consistent with what we wanted. It didn't get transmitted. Don't know what happened, or whatever happened, it didn't get transmitted. So we just needed to transmit, let them review, them being the state of Florida, and all these agencies review it, give us their comments back, so we could go through what's called the adoption hearing, which is what we're doing tonight. There's the transmittal hearing and adoption hearing. We're at the adoption hearing stage. Technically, this probably should happen in the spring, but because it wasn't initially transmitted, it was transmitted late, Heather got the state to accept it, and then reviewed it anyway.
With a lot of effort, yes.
Yeah, you got to accept it. And I don't know what the comments were, it came back, I don't know the adjustments were made needed, but came back, it's now before you for second reading.
There were no adjustments for this, just so
No.
you know, there was no requirements for adjustments. All that the state let us know was that we had some other work to do because there has been changes to other statutes. That's all that they give us notice, hey, you just on notice that these other items need to be addressed, which Jim and I are working on now.
So, but basically, the city had one position on what they wanted to see over there. The state of Florida changed the law that took that decision-making away from them. And so, in essence, we tried to make the best deal we could for the citizens, given what the state legislature did to the city.
Okay.
Now, that's the bottom line what happened.
I was in the audience at that point, so I'm glad you gave me that.
You're catching up, yeah.
Yeah, I'm catching up. Yeah, I was in the audience, and it seemed like once they said live local, then it was a no-brainer. You gotta go along with it, but now we have an option.
And the developer worked with us to come up with an option.
Thank you.
The best we made the best deal we could, given the circumstances. There were some things that we were able to provide to them that they wouldn't get under local. There are some things they could give to us that we couldn't get under local. It's the best of everything.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, I know you said that
Yes,
there's still some items that you're working on, that you and Jim are working on.
So they're not related to this, they're related to other components of your comprehensive plan because the state law has changed in some of the other areas. So what happened was when they review these amendments, when they go up to the state, we get comments back, and if we haven't already addressed some of the changes in the law, which we haven't done because we haven't gone through what's called our evaluation and appraisal report, which is required next year, not this year, they're just putting us on notice. So we are in the process of working on some of those items that they will be incorporated. You will see some of those pieces come forward to address those additional state laws. They do not affect this specifically, they affect your comp plan. And they only affect the city's ability if you want to change the future land use on any property in the city. Not if it's a private property development. Private property developers can come in and they can ask for whatever they want. You as a city cannot amend your comp plan until you meet the requirements of the state law. That's the first step of the process. So in order for us to keep you in a place where if you were to need to do some type of amendment, you have the ability to do that, I need to move the forward. Otherwise, it would have to be a private developer that comes in and did your change that really you as a city wants that change. So there's ways around it, but we want to get you right with the state law so that you're consistent and you stay consistent as the law changes.
And you'll hear us refer to them as ear.
Yeah.
Ear.
Yeah, you're gonna have a couple that come before the year, but eventually there may be other additional changes that happen while we're in that process of going through and evaluating your whole comp plan to make sure it meets state law. You know, most of it meets state law because most of the changes that have come through, you've addressed. It's just there's a few little things that tweak every year at the legislation level, and if we're not actively moving through the comp plan regularly to do that, because there's this expense associated with that. My time is expensive, so there's an expense associated with that. We try to wait till the state tells us it absolutely has to happen ahead of your ear before you can do anything wrong. We just don't want to stop you as a city to have options. We want to provide those options as much as possible to you as a city if you need them. Not that you are planning on doing any of that, but I want you to be able to do it if you need to. There could be an emergency situation where you have to acquire property and you need to change the future land use. We need to have that ability for you to do that.
No, I appreciate that. There's a lot of things that we need right now.
Yeah, definitely.
I do have a couple of questions because when I first started hearing about this plan and project, as our attorney said, it was commercial, as we were looking at these higher dollars, that's what we wanted. So now it's changed to 348 apartments. Is there going to be, is this like phase one, or do you have a phase two?
So as far as
commercial land?
So not necessarily the phasing, but that's the total number of, that's the maximum yield of apartments that you would have. Like
they can have no more than 348 units. It does not mean that you will get 348 units on that property. What we have done in the land use right now is we've limited to that, just that place, because there's more places that are employment center. The employment center is a big, long piece of property, theoretically, a lot of it. We just consolidated into the southern portion and said, okay, theoretically, the maximum intensity that you can have on the residential side is 348 units, and it has to be balanced with mixed use. And that's what the intention of this district is. That's the intention of what their plan is. They're going to have a mixed use code that's going to include a residential component, whatever that looks like, because I don't have a plan, I can't tell you what it looks like. And it's going to consist of some type of commercial. And most of the commercial uses were like restaurant uses and those types of uses that were included in what they've already developed on the land side, or in the process of getting entitled on the land side. So they kind of gave me a theoretical concept.
Yeah. The details,
But we are-
the details
We don't
will
have
come
it
at the rezoning stage. They will
Yeah.
come in with what's called plan development, and that will have the details, that will lay out, this is where how many residential units they have, where they will be, this is where the commercial will be. And so that will include a development agreement and a plan that kind of lays out where everything's going to be, and that will be at the rezoning stage.
And it will also include the phasing schedule, which will address the issue that you're saying, is it going to be all in one phase, is it going to be phased over time? That's something that they're going to have to tell us at the rezoning level. That's one of the requirements in your code, is that you provide me that phasing schedule that tells me. That's why though the one that we were working on currently on Main and Summit, that folks have seen, has phasing lines on it, because it's required as part of the PD for them to show that to us, so that we can make sure everything works from an internal perspective, as well as that it works with the outside area. So it's consistent and compatible with the outside, but also that like internally it's going to work. Because there's nothing worse than driving through parking lots that you can't get out of because nobody thought about it.
Right. Well, considering that the land, on the land side, they are getting commercial,
Mhm.
that's why I ask, on the Lake Helen side, are there plans at commercial even?
I believe so, with the.
So I can tell you from a theoretical
Yeah.
perspective, because I got a concept plan that was attached to DeLand's PD. So DeLand has their PD, and then there's a conceptual idea of what theoretically will happen on the Lake Helen side. But that formal submittal to Lake Helen has not happened. They have been waiting for this to occur for a really long time. And we were delayed this summer because we had to negotiate with the state because you didn't hit their deadline. And there is nothing in state law to really tell them what they're supposed to do when you don't hit a deadline. And so we had to negotiate with the Department of, well, it was the Department of Economic Development, now it's the Department of Commerce. We had to negotiate with the folks there so that when they get this final, whatever we decide to do tonight, when they get this final piece, they understand what's happening.
Well, are the plans also for Lake Helen to maintain the water side of it, or is the land?
The utilities are going to be provided by the land, both water and wastewater.
And that's the same as it was under the prior automobile. So just so you know, just so we can say that we limited up, they can have up to 20 acres of residential. The balance of the property has to be commercial. So that's in this conflict. So in terms of
the water.
Huh?
Basically lose the utilities.
We don't lose it, we never have.
Oh, I thought we.
No.
The other side of my shore was DeLand's water control district. That was the agreement. We're on.
They were always providing.
Our side, we got it.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry. Just want to make sure I'm.
No, absolutely.
Can I just ask you one question? With 348 units, and our comp plan build out was supposed to be for 6,000. If we have 348 units with 3 people in it, roughly, you're talking about another 1,000 people that could be added if we use that build out. Is that something that is in our timetable? If we were building out to 6,000, that was one of the reasons that we have septic as opposed to sewer. Sewer was numbers down. We did not include at that time a 348 unit with an additional $1,000.
This would be on sewer.
This would be.
This is gonna be on central sewer provided by the land, so it's gonna be a little.
Number of people. In other words, we didn't have 348 units when we thought this out, but now we'll get 348 units with the, that's the maximum they can go up to. And even if we use it as 3 person per apartment or whatever, we're talking about 1,000 people coming into this unit. Do we have that capacity in our plan to get them modified?
What do you mean capacity? You're not
No,
saying
Because we wanted to.
from a water and sewer.
The population, we're only about third,
So-
we're just over 3,000.
What will happen is when we go back to going through your evaluation appraisal reform, we will reopen your comp plan. At that time, we will you, not me,
Yeah.
we collectively, all of us, will decide what your growth potential that you want to see by 2050 will be, whatever that number is. And then we will apportion that to the land uses appropriately. What will not change is this maximum number will never go up unless they come back to you and say, hey, we want to put additional units in there, with the caveat that if they use live local, I have zero control over the comp plan because that is not the intention of that law. But we'll accommodate as much as we possibly can during your evaluation and appraisal report. So while you have it identified in here, that's what this amendment is doing. It's adding that to the land use element.
Okay.
So it assumes that additional population is coming with those additional units.
What your answer is for me is that if we have to come back to the 6,000 at some point in the future, we can modify it or change it.
Correct.
We're not stuck with it.
Correct.
That's what I kind of cut my teeth on for the last 12 years.
But you're stuck with it in the sense that you're still gonna have the water and sewer issue.
Water and sewer.
So if you are going to increase your population, you're also gonna have to increase the amount of water that you're able to basically pump and produce for folks. And you're also gonna have to deal with what are we doing with septic systems, right? Because you can't just willy-nilly increase the population if you're not going to have an essential sewer system, and you have a limited ability to connect to the surrounding sewer systems. You just aren't in places where things work. Plus, you've got all these water-related issues, so the land itself is lower in a lot of places, so it's going to make it harder for some of those connections to happen. So that's why the septic systems are going to be your best option to continue doing that. And you're right, you're going to have to keep your population low, but that doesn't necessarily hold you to that 6,000 number. It holds you to that today because the analysis that was done back in, I think, 17, or maybe even before that, that analysis was based on that population. But if you grow your population, all of the other elements of your comprehensive plan get amended to accommodate that new population at the end year.
Okay.
So right now you're 2035, the end year would be probably 2050 that you would be planning out in your next update of your comp plan.
Thank you so much.
Mr. Mayor, if there's 1,000 people in those apartments, they have no impact on the city's consumptive use permit. And
Because they're not.
because it's not our water. And the land has capacity for both water and sewer, so it will not impact what you're talking about.